Loki's cool, huh?
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for joining us on this special Loki episode. As Zach has formally announced, Loki is cool.
If you're here, you know what's up.
It is a lot of great content.
Great television.
First off, if we don't see Owen Wilson's character on a fucking jet ski by the end of the series, I quit.
So we should mention, at the time of this recording, there are 5 of the 6 episodes out right now. So that's all we're going on, is we're talking spoilers on the first 5 episodes, and then we'll probably speculate what's going on in the 6th, but we don't actually know what the conclusion of the show is right now.
We will know that in a day and a half.
Can we start by talking about who we think is behind the TVA? And then can we move back from there? Because this is what I really want to talk about.
I think, based on what
Kang.
we've talked about before, do you say Kang, Johnny? I mean, he's already been announced as a villain for Ant-Man and the Wasp. Ant-Man, Quantumania, whatever that title is. So he is the main villain of that movie.
But from what little I know about Kang, and I only just learned about him from my coworker who's talking about Loki, it sounds like he could be in this too.
No, 100%. Like, I mean, it seems like everything they've set up has gone that direction. I mean, I can't think of her name right now, but the leader of the TVA, the main...
Ravonna.
Was that?
Ravonna
Yeah,
Renslayer.
Ravonna. Exactly. She's like Kang's like main like assistant. So it makes sense that it would be Kang. But at the same time, because as Daniel, as you've stated in our recent podcast, where after watching all these Marvel series and we've had such high expectations, Kang would be what Mephisto would be in the WandaVision series. Well, it makes the most sense based on thematics that we're talking about, which of course recently we've talked about Sabriel as well. We were talking about thematics in that book. In this series, the thematic about it is that Loki survived. It's always Loki. That's the direction thematically that they're going, is that Loki is still the big villain. Because
Yes.
That's
I agree with you 100%. That's what I think we're heading towards.
That was also what I was going to say, is it's probably a Loki.
as much as I would prefer. I think it'd be better if it was Kang, but as Daniel says, that would be a step too high. I think that they would be shooting too high for themselves. I mean, they could do it, but I think that they're trying to save that for movies. But
personally, I don't know who the fuck Kang is, so I don't really care whether or not they do him. Like, I think it'd be way cooler if it was some kind of fucking mega Loki.
I mean, I agree. I don't have any problems with it being Loki either. It just...
I would, because why the fuck would Loki make all of this shit?
To rule.
I mean, think about it.
To rule everything. That was his motif for a long time.
Yeah, but
obviously
but
not
Loki,
the main Loki that we're
But
following.
Loki wants to be the ruler only if he's seen as the ruler. Like, that's been shown. Like, he's been making people bow to him, and these are like random people that he just found.
The Loki we know.
Well, yes, but I mean, if it is some mega Loki, I don't think that they're gonna change it from the main Loki like exponentially.
Well, but like in a world where we're encountering all these Loki variants, and we just had the best episode thus far, where we got to kind of like chat with the other Loki variants and see kind of what made them tick and see how they're all different, varying like character flaws of Loki. I kind of like the idea that like the most powerful Loki, I say most powerful because, of course, we know our Loki's going to defeat whoever the person is at the end of the TVA regardless. But the most powerful Loki is the one who decided, oh, I don't need to rule and be visible. I just have to rule from the background. Like, that's what makes him different. That's what makes his variant special, is that he's okay with being the puppet master. That's how he would prefer to rule.
And on top of that, Johnny, to beat your argument down right away, to an extent, is we got Sylvie. Sylvie's a completely different Loki 100% anyways to begin with.
True.
So, and they've shown that there's a wide range of Lokis that could exist.
There's an alligator.
There's an alligator Loki, a Croaky.
It doesn't get more different than that.
But the other thing thematically why it makes sense for it to be Loki is, like, especially with Owen Wilson's character, he's said several times throughout the entire first several episodes, I mean, there's only been 5, but there's mainly the first 2 episodes, really, that it's always Loki. Also, they're always hunting Lokis. Why else would the person in charge always be hunting all these variant Lokis if it wasn't a main Loki trying to exterminate his line in a way?
This is what I'm saying, bro. We're on the same page here.
Yeah, but I mean, like, why would he put them in the very closest place? Well, I guess that beast consumes him. I don't know.
I mean, I agree with you, Johnny.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
I don't
for sure.
necessarily agree that it should be Loki, but based on what they've given us, that's what makes sense.
And also, I'll just say, if it is Kang, like, I don't know how they could give me Kang in the last episode and make it feel satisfying. Because my answer to Kang showing up is going to be, who the fuck cares? Who is this guy?
My answer would be, who the fuck is this? I don't know who this is.
What? Like, why would that make any sense? Why do I want that? Like, okay, I understand because of
thematically, why would that make any sense?
Right, like I know because of the research I've done that, he's a time traveler, so maybe he already knows how things are going to end or whatever, blah, 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 blah. And we know that he's going to be in other things, but like, yeah, I'm not even sure if it was Kang, how that would be an ending I would even like.
Yeah.
Although it would be cool.
For me, I have not done any research whatsoever. I just know what I've actually read in the comics and things like that of like Kang being a time traveler and, conquering time literally, blah, 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 blah. I haven't really looked at like theories that people have and stuff like that. So that's from a absolutely ignorant and non-discussed person.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I don't even read comics. I just kind of watch the movies and go along with whatever they throw at me, and then whatever you guys tell me exists, I believe you.
So, just going forward.
I think I 100% agree with Daniel. I don't think there's enough room in the last episode to have it be Kang. But also, I don't know. Like, the only reason why it's conflicting and why, like, 'cause this is like another Mephisto situation, is because they have so many things that lead you to think, okay, well, this has to be Kang based on all of these things. But also, it doesn't make sense for it to be Kang, but it does. Like, that's the part that's conflicting.
And they did this before. And they did this exactly before. They did this with WandaVision, because we got her 2 twins that in the comics they were created by Mephisto, and we've got all of these other things, these other like little teasers, like they knew what they were doing. They were egging us on. And we've got the same thing here.
It would also make sense with the timekeepers being fake trickery.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm like, they are smart, and there's some dude's job, especially where they're at now in like whatever phase of Marvel we're in,
everybody,
where like they are so deep in the lore that they could do anything they wanted. They can use their superior information beyond only the most hardcore fans to fake us out in any which way. So, and the irony, of course, being that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has never been particularly accurate to the comics, and now everyone's like, but it's not like it's in the comics. It's like they never were. I don't know why you keep using that as a justification. It's always been its own thing. Yeah. So yeah, I'll be very curious to see. I think it being Loki would be cool. Like I said, I love this show. So it hasn't stumbled for me yet, and I'm hoping it
No, me either. I've really enjoyed it.
Finale, because I haven't loved the other 2 finales so much.
Yeah, I don't think that there's anything that could happen huge that would ruin this for me either way, regardless of what ever happens. Because if they just do Kang and they just like, oh, this is setting up for stuff, like it is what it is. Like it wouldn't be necessarily satisfying, but it wouldn't be bad still. I mean, depending on how they did it, I guess. I mean, we know that they are, again, super knowledgeable with comics, with how many Easter eggs were in the last episode. I didn't catch any of them, but I watched like a little video of someone like summarizing all of the dumb Easter eggs that were in the last episode. I loved Frog 4 that you saw for 2 seconds in a jar.
Shout outs to the Thanos copter.
It was something I'd never heard of, but that existed.
There's a Thanos copter.
In the comics in the 80s, Thanos weirdly had like a helicopter he would fly around
and it just says Thanos in big block letters on the side of it.
Yeah, and
Where
so
was this?
so
Was it like when
goofy.
they were going down underground?
at the end of the it's at the end of the world. There was it was on top of a pile of rubbish. Whatever.
Yeah.
There was a Thanos copter.
Apparently, there's a deleted scene supposedly where Frog Thor fights somebody.
Yeah, I heard
Supposedly,
that Chris Hemsworth recorded lines.
That's
awesome.
hilarious.
That would have been good.
That's awesome.
So-
Release the Throg cut.
So, just to say, I would be disappointed if it's Loki. I don't want it to be Loki. I know it will be now that you bring up all of these points. Thematically, it makes
We don't know anything. We don't know jack
They've fooled us
shit.
before.
Okay.
I've been wrong every time.
I would be. Well, Ryan hasn't.
Oh, that's
He said
true. Because
Agatha.
he got Agatha, and the Power Broker was a much easier like.
Oh, and then I called that one. I mean, that one.
Well, I mean,
was-
we all called that one.
was
That
so
one was
easy.
obvious.
Yeah.
Um,
But no, I think you're totally right because the theme is that Loki survive. I would hate it if it's true, but it makes sense the way that they told the story.
And maybe they'll subvert that too. Who knows?
Maybe.
They could,
We'll
but
know
here's
in a day and a
the
half.
other thing you got to look at. I got two things I'm gonna say. The first one is even more support why it's gonna be a Loki or some variation of Loki
A variant.
is because you got to look at Marvel's motif. Is that the right word? What they do in every movie. What did we get in Iron Man 1? Iron Man 1, who's his big bad? Another Iron Man. Who's his villain in Iron Man 2? Another Iron Man. What's, going to now WandaVision. What is her villain? Another witch.
Another sorcerer.
Who
Or
is,
witch,
And
Falcon and
another
the Winter
Vision.
Soldier's villain? Other super soldiers. And that goes for every Captain America movie there is. Captain America movie 1, we got Red Skull, we got Winter Soldier. The third movie, we have the threat of the other super soldiers that turn out not to be alive, but that was still the threat.
There's an evil Ant-Man.
There's an
an
evil
evil-
Ant-Man. Exactly. So that's kind of the setup that they're doing for that is the anti-version of the hero. So Loki versus really his real anti-hero version of himself. Or not hero, but his anti-Loki. But anyways, the other thing I wanted to say is something I have been disappointed about with the series. This is really my only gripe, and it's not a huge gripe, it's just they've except for one time in this last episode where you see Frog Thor, and when you see Kid Thor, it's talking about like, oh, what makes you a variant? Oh, I killed Thor. There's no mention of Thor at all. Like, Thor is such a huge part of Loki's life. And I don't care like what variant you are. She should be a big part of every Loki's life to some extent. Sylvie's never mentioned Thor. They've never talked about Thor together. Like there's been literally no mention. That's the only thing that's bugged me is that there's been none of that. And I would have loved to have. We don't need a Chris Hemsworth, cameo by any means, but
Well, I mean, there's so many different Lokis, so they don't
There
have
are.
to have to have that
like that's
Thor.
the
So
one
you
thing
could-
that
you could
bugs
have
me is
Thor
I
variants,
wish there
yeah.
was some
Even just
mention
some
of that.
more mention.
I mean,
I see
hell,
that.
Even when Loki is going through his flashbacks of life, or what his sacred timeline life is, he does have one moment where they're in the elevator in Thor Ragnarok and they have a little moment, but literally like the whole thing that makes Loki tear up several times, it's his mother, and which is fine. I know his mother was a really big character for him, for our Loki, but it just is crazy to me that there is no Thor at all, like mentioned.
Well, I also think it might be partly because, and I do think this is one of the more interesting parts of the show, is like it's not the same Loki. This is 2012 Loki branched,
that
and then he
hated
goes
Thor,
through
but still,
like
it was
he goes through like rapid fire character development, but he's still like he hasn't done anything post Avengers or had any of that.
Right, and that's fine, but you also have to realize
experience.
he's like 1,000 years old, or I think he's like 1,500.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying there's no Thor in his life, but when he diverged from the timeline was literally right after Thor imprisoned him, so he's not exactly in like good favor with him, you know what I mean?
Right. But like I said, like he didn't really become evil in Thor 1 until he found out he was adopted and was lied to. That's when he made the switch. Like, okay, I'm fully evil now, like, I mean, I say evil lightly. He had other motives to what he was doing. He wasn't just straight evil, but
that's kind of the point of the whole show too. Is he's not like exactly evil,
which is fine. But like I said, like I said, he's lived for 1,500 years at least. I don't know what the actual canon age he is.
He's old as shit. Yeah,
that's a lot of time.
How old is old Loki then?
I mean, you have to be really old because he was the main Loki that survived to a certain point, which is cool. Yeah, I really like that idea that he survived.
It's a good character. But like, how old though? Damn.
I mean, yeah.
Or maybe they just didn't grow because
something to think about.
Oh well, no, Odin grew old.
Yeah, well, they get old eventually.
I was gonna say maybe they didn't grow old in Asgard, but no, they did.
Who knows?
Anyway, that's really my only gripe. It's not a huge gripe. It just I wish there was a mention.
I can see that.
So one of the things that I didn't like about this series, it was one episode in specific, is the one that they were jumping through apocalypses. There's literally I said it before, and it was like it was setting. If that makes any sense? They were setting the setting.
Okay. Sure.
It was the one where they were jumping in through apocalypses with both Sylvie and Loki, and they were on that one big. It was when they escaped into what was it? That apocalypse
purple
city
planet
that had the train.
Lamentus.
Yeah, the purple one. Lamentus. Yeah. I didn't like that episode.
See,
I thought it was really just.
I understand why
nothing happened,
and I know. Yeah, a lot of people argued that nothing happened that entire episode, and they only got a few bits of information. And I do agree to a certain extent, but that episode was about them learning to trust each other. That was the whole purpose of that episode.
Character development.
100%. Could have done it differently.
I mean,
I
sure.
think that they could have done it completely differently, and that's the reason why I don't like the episode.
But I think
I agree with getting the information like that out 100%, and I think that was required. I don't like what they did in the episode. They should have done that differently.
But I think this is kind of a common theme with a lot of things that we've been talking about recently. But I think it's okay to have wished that there was something else going on. But I think that they executed what they wanted to present us with supremely well. They wanted us to have an episode where plot took a little bit of a back seat, where we didn't necessarily advance the storyline, and we just got some time to develop the connection between Loki and Sylvie, because that was what the next 3 episodes were going to base everything off of. Without that episode on Lamentus, we wouldn't care. We wouldn't buy the sentimentality that they have for each other, that Sylvie is going to risk her life and that Loki is going to risk his to save one another without that interlude. So I get it. I completely agree. I still agree that it was the weakest episode, but in context with the show and the arc that they want to present, I think it was really significant. And they even call that out when they're like, look at the fucking divergence off of this. And because that whole episode was leading up to this moment that's going to have some kind of an impact. Probably if there's any part of the show that has an impact on the greater Marvel universe, it was that moment right there. And so that episode may become more significant as we come to the conclusion of the show.
Well, I mean, if we come to the very end and kill the timekeeper Loki, then there's gonna be a whole hell of a lot more that happens to the fucking timeline.
Yeah, I wanted to. Sorry, Ryan, did you have a...
No, go for it.
I was just gonna, that was where I wanted to talk about next and ask what you guys think the greater impact of this show will be on the end of the Marvel Universe. I was talking to our boy Sam a little bit, and I'm gonna just cop this straight from him, and I'm gonna think this, disrupting the timeline and getting rid of the gatekeeper Loki and everything, I think that's gonna be what cracks open the multiverse and starts that whole problem that we already know is gonna happen.
100%.
And
100%.
This is the gateway into that series of movies.
Well, but the thing is that there was always a multiverse. I mean, you saw that in Avengers Endgame. There was always a multiverse.
True. Yeah. And there are all these variants from the multiverse that they...
I don't think this cracks open anything. Yeah, I don't think this cracks open anything other than diverting different timelines and even then the fact that there are different types of Lokis in the first place,
it proves
shows
that
there's
a multiverse.
It's a multiverse.
I think it's
already.
Just there won't be policing on it anymore, and they're gonna intermingle, and there's gonna be problems associated with it.
100%.
And that's why Doctor Strange or whoever the hell, or Spider-Man's going to have to deal with it.
And I think I don't think that that's like a big question.
No, I just think it's interesting to talk about.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting thing on how they go in the future, like how they're going to incorporate this, because they can now literally do anything they want.
Yeah, I think that's probably what we're leading up to. I think that with the elimination of the TVA, we're going to open up the ability for dimensions to interact. Is there a story arc? I know that this arc exists in DC Comics. Is there like an Interdimensional War Arc in Marvel Comics?
Yeah, that'd be the 2015 Secret War, where Doctor Doom and Molecule Man, which they are always at the center of the Secret Wars, essentially. But what happens is all the different, multiversal universes all are starting to collide, just like the DC Universe one, in a very similar way. And that's how we got Miles Morales from the Ultimate Universe into the now main universe, which is a conglomeration of everything they wanted to keep from everything. But then somehow they split off again, and now there's still multiple universes. It's Marvel does whatever the hell they want with it.
That's true.
Comics,
it works.
Yeah,
but
that's how comics work.
I have a few wishes for the end of the series. Similar to Johnny, 100%. We need to see Owen Wilson have a jet ski of some kind flying off into the sunset.
Agreed, 100%.
Honestly, that would be probably the best way for the final shot. That'd probably be
do it.
The best thing.
Do it, cowards.
It's the difference between an 8 and a 9 for me.
The other thing I definitely would like to see is I'd like to see both Sylvie and Loki survive. And I'm not sure that's going to happen. But I would like them both to survive. And I don't know if that's
one thing that I think is going to happen. Now, I don't think that this is going to, I don't know. The first thing that I thought of when they held hands. First off, let's back up. It's kind of weird.
It's a little weird.
It's kind of weird. Like, I'm okay with it because they're different enough.
Yeah,
but like,
I can get past it, but initially I was like, are they gonna? Yeah, they're gonna. It's a little weird. I can move past it, whatever. Yeah. But it is a little weird.
So, and then now, like 2 episodes after that, I'm like, yeah, it's fine.
He is.
Second thing.
He is pretty narcissistic, though. So it is kind of like, it fits.
Oh, there was a thing that said that so they were like, is there going to be a love interest for Loki? Like he was in, Tom Hiddleston was in a interview and he's like, well, thought about it for a minute. In this, it's really about Loki finding self-love. He fucking told us.
He did.
He fucking told us. And
he's a sneaky
wrong.
guy.
That's not really a spoiler either.
Right,
so
right. No, it's great. It's great. Because nobody would have expected this. But anyways, they held hands, and I don't know why, but I think that like their essences are going to absorb into each other. I don't know why. That's just like off the cuff something that I thought of as I was watching it. Could be weird. Could be cool.
Could be cool.
I don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah, I guess that's a possibility.
If they don't do that, I don't think Sylvie's gonna make it. I don't think she will. It could go
either way. Honestly, we could lose Tom, or we could lose. I wish I knew her actress.
That would be interesting.
We could lose. We could go either way.
We've already lost Tom like 3 times. I wouldn't be surprised.
I think it's likely that the divergence there on the timeline has something to do with the fact that they are going to stay together. Like they're going to continue to be like a duo. And that's like a new thing in the Marvel universe, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is like, it's like sort of like a cheeky, like, yeah, it's divergent because that's the universe we're watching now is the one where Loki and Sylvie exist together. So I think that's probably, if there's going to be another like kind of like sustaining thing beyond this, I'd say that probably has something to do with it too.
I hope
get ready for Loki's on Disney Plus.
I hope we see both of them come back in Thor 4. I hope that's something we see.
Thor.
I mean, honestly, really, how they've written Sylvie is they've just made her the Enchantress. She's the MCU version of the Enchantress, 100%. I mean, mixed in with the female version of Loki, because there is the female version of Loki in the comic. So they've done like a weird conglomerate. I've said that word so many times tonight, but it's a weird combination.
It's a mishmash
of both characters. And I think Sylvie is a character that is in the comics that takes on the persona of the Enchantress for a little bit, and it's not have anything to do with Loki. It's just somebody who has a similar power set who takes on the name. Obviously,
I think it works though.
It's not the actual Enchantress, but it's fine. I think that's cool, and that's why I think it's okay that their romance is what it is. Other than the fact that it is a very narcissistic thing, so it makes sense the only person Loki could love is himself. But at the same time, it is a completely different character too, from how they're portraying her, in a way. But
they also just taught Loki, Loki Prime, I'll say. They taught Loki Prime how to do the enchanting anyways.
Yeah.
So it's like
he's gaining powers.
Kind of just not replaced, because she's obviously better than he is, but like, but
like he wouldn't lose the power.
Right. And so I think that it would be interesting to see if they do keep the two of them. I don't think they will, but
I don't know they will either. But
well, the Enchantress is a whole thing in itself. Like, that has nothing to do with Loki knowing how to do enchantment magic. But that's something else I do really like about the show, is how it delves into the magic so much more. I mean, WandaVision was like really the start of really delving into. Well, I guess Doctor Strange was the first delving into magic
Sorcerer
in the MCU
type of.
And then they've only expanded it with the shows. But I think that how much they've used magic, I would like to see them make Avengers 1 again. You know, remaking it with how much they use magic in Loki.
Yeah. All right. Well, any last thoughts while we're here?
That about does it for me.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. It's a good show.
Yeah, I think.
Can't wait to see how it ends.
Yeah, I think overall, it's a
very good show.
Yeah, I think Owen Wilson has a great performance. I mean, all of them have great performances. Like, and that's just kind of how it works with Marvel. I mean,
Tom always brings his A game. He's very good at what he does.
Yeah, all the cast members are great. Owen Wilson's great. Everybody.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. So, all right.
Oh,
cool.
wait! I do have one final thought. All
right.
And this is what I was talking about. How earlier, when we were talking in our podcast episode, how I was really angry. I was really angry after episode 4 when they killed off Owen Wilson right away, and then they killed Loki off. That was the part I was really angry about, because writing-wise, there's no reason why either Sylvie or Loki would have left anybody in that room fucking not disintegrated. There's no reason why they wouldn't have all disintegrated,
whatsoever.
because that set up the stage for one of the TVA people to stab him in the back and do that whole thing. That wouldn't have happened. That would not have happened. I don't care how many times people can argue.
They just needed to get the plot forward.
Exactly, which makes sense because they were limited in episodes. I don't know, but like that was the part that
it's
made
like
me angry,
contrivance.
because after he died, I was like, okay, what's the fucking point? I don't care. And then they got me back with the post-credit scene of him being alive still. But like at the same point, that wouldn't have happened.
They should have just had the fight end in the way where Loki just got taken. And they could have made it in like mid-battle. They could have made that moment where it was like, he turns to Sylvie, who's getting stabbed. And just as that happens, the person that he was fighting gets him. And Sylvie watches that. And then she beats that person down, the head person down to the point where she's like, you're going to tell me where he went. Done.
Yeah, I think that would have been way better.
Been perfect.
100%.
But it just, the way end of the battle and there's somebody that's still alive. No.
That was my last thought.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. Check out our Black Widow spoiler talk where we talk about Black Widow.
And enjoy Loki.
Spoilers. We talk about Black Widow. All right. See you, everybody.